first time I bought a security camera, it felt embarrassing. Not because I thought I was paranoid, because I didn't. I told myself it was practical. Packages kept going missing in my building, and my landlord's solution was always the same tired line. "We'll look into it." So I looked into it myself. It was one of those small indoor cameras you can stick on a shelf. Motion detection, night vision, an app that sends alerts. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. I set it up on the top of my bookshelf where it could see my front door, most of my living room, and the hallway that led to my bedroom. I live alone. No roommates, no partner, no friends dropping by unexpectedly. My life is so routine it's almost dull. That's why what happened didn't make sense. That's why it worked. The first night I installed the camera, I slept better. There's a strange comfort in knowing you can check something if you get anxious. That if you hear a noise, you can open the app and see your front door in crisp night vision, looking exactly the way it should. Normal, still, safe. The next morning, my phone showed 3 notifications. Motion detected, 3:12 a.m. motion detected, 3:13 a.m. motion detected, 3:14 a.m. My stomach tightened, for reasons I couldn't name yet. I tapped the first alert and watched the clip. Night vision turned my apartment into a pale, grainy version of itself. The living room was empty. The door was closed. The shadows were where they belonged. Then the door handle moved. Not a violent shake, not a frantic jiggle. A slow, careful press. The deadbolt didn't click. The chain didn't rattle. The handle moved the way it moves when someone has done it 100 times and expects it to work. It didn't. The person on the other side tried again, gently, then stopped. A second later, the door opened. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped my phone. The door opened inward like the deadbolt wasn't there, like the chain wasn't there. Like my entire sense of security was a joke someone had been waiting to tell. A figure stepped into my apartment. They were dressed in dark clothes, hood up, face mostly hidden. But the thing that froze me wasn't the clothing. It was how calm they moved. They didn't scan the room like a burglar. They didn't rush. They stepped inside, closed the door behind them, and stood for a moment in the center of my living room like they were listening. Then they turned and walked out of frame, down the hall toward my bedroom. The clip ended. I stared at my phone, heart pounding, and realized my hands were shaking. Because if that clip was real, there was only one explanation. Someone had been inside my apartment while I was sleeping, and the camera didn't record them entering. It recorded them leaving. The second alert was 2 minutes later. I played it. The hallway was empty. Then a shape emerged from the darkness at the end of the hall. The same figure. They walked into the living room without looking around, as if they already knew where everything was. They paused at my front door. They didn't hesitate. They didn't fumble. They opened it like it was their door. Then they stepped into the hallway outside my apartment and gently pulled it closed behind them. The last frame showed the door fully shut. Then nothing. I replayed it 3 times, and that's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl even more than the footage itself. When the figure closed my door, they didn't face outward like someone leaving. They faced inward toward my apartment, as if they were making sure the door latched from my side, as if they cared how it sounded, as if they'd done this before. I checked the third alert. It was almost identical to the second, except shorter. It showed the figure's hand on the door handle again. A brief pause. Then the clip ended, like the camera couldn't decide whether to keep recording. I sat in my kitchen staring at the screen until my coffee went cold. Then I did the first logical thing anyone would do. I checked my front door, deadbolt locked, chain in place, no scratches, no marks. My keys were where I always left them. My windows were closed. Everything looked normal. My apartment looked untouched. But the footage existed. And once something like that exists, normal stops feeling like truth. I spent the entire day trying to explain it away. Maybe the camera glitched. Maybe the app merged clips incorrectly. Maybe it recorded someone in a different unit by mistake. Except it was clearly my living room. Maybe I forgot to lock the door. Except I never forget. I have that habit where you lock, tug again, then walk away. I do it even when I'm going to throw trash out for 30 seconds. Maybe it was maintenance, except maintenance doesn't sneak into your apartment at 3 a.m. wearing a hood. Maybe it was someone with a key, like the landlord. That thought made my stomach twist. A landlord key isn't just a key. It's permission disguised as metal. It's the knowledge that someone else can cross your boundary without breaking anything. So I did what I should have done immediately. I called my landlord. She answered on the third ring, bright voice, too cheerful for my mood. "Hi, everything okay?" "No," I said. "My camera recorded someone inside my apartment last night." Silence on the other end, just long enough to feel staged. "Someone inside your apartment?" she repeated. "Yes, at 3 in the morning." Another pause. "That's not possible," she said carefully. "I watched them walk out my front door." "I don't know what to tell you," she replied. "Maybe it's a camera glitch." "It's not." "We can send maintenance to check your locks," she offered quickly, like she wanted to move past it. "Sometimes the latches, my locks were locked." More silence. Then she said something that made my blood go cold. "Well, it's an older building," she said, as if that explained everything. "Sometimes doors don't catch the way you think." I stared at the wall. "You have a key," I said. "I do," she said, too fast. "For emergencies." "Did you come in last night?" "What? No, of course not." "Did anyone else come in?" "No." "You're sure?" "I'm sure," she said, voice tightening slightly. "If you're concerned, contact the police." Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "And maybe, don't rely on those cheap cameras. They can be unreliable." She hung up before I could respond. The way she said cheap cameras bothered me. It was dismissive, sure, but it was also specific. Like she didn't want me to trust what I saw. That night I didn't just lock my door. I filmed myself locking it. Deadbolt, chain, handle tug, tug again. I left the camera running in full view of my door. Then I set a second camera, my phone, on my kitchen counter facing the hallway. I didn't have another security camera, but I had an old phone and a recording app. It wasn't fancy. It was something. I told myself I was being smart. I told myself I was making it impossible for the footage to lie. I didn't sleep until after midnight. And even then, it wasn't sleep. It was drifting, waking, checking, listening. At 2:57 a.m., my eyes snapped open. No sound woke me, no alarm, just instinct. I lay completely still. The room was dark. The security camera's little blue light glowed on the shelf like a tiny eye. Then my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected. 3:13 a.m. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I opened the app with shaking fingers and watched the live feed. My living room was empty. My door was closed. Everything looked normal. Then the hallway darkened, not like a shadow passing, like the darkness itself thickened, as if something moved between the camera and the hall light. A figure appeared at the end of my hallway, inside my apartment, walking toward the living room. My skin went ice cold. It wasn't in my bedroom doorway, where a person should appear if they'd walk down the hall. It looked like it formed out of the dark, like the camera's night vision struggled to render it until it got close enough. The figure walked calmly into my living room. It stopped directly in front of my camera, and for a moment, one long, impossible moment, it lifted its head and looked straight into the lens. I couldn't see a face. The hood shadowed everything, and the night vision washed details into pale gray. But the posture was unmistakable. It wasn't checking the camera like someone surprised to find it. It was acknowledging it. Then it turned toward my front door. The handle moved. The chain didn't rattle. The deadbolt didn't click. The door opened anyway. The figure stepped into the hallway outside. Then, just like the night before, it closed the door from my side, gently, like it knew how important quiet was. The camera alert ended. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I leapt out of bed and ran to the front door. Deadbolt locked, chain in place. I stared at it, panting. If the door hadn't opened, then the footage was impossible. If the footage was real, then my door didn't matter. Both options felt equally terrifying. I checked my phone recording from the kitchen counter. It was still running. I scrubbed back to 3:13. The video showed my hallway. Empty. No figure. No movement. No shadow. Nothing. I rewound and watched again. Still nothing. My security camera had recorded someone leaving. My phone camera recorded nothing at all. It was like whatever it was could be seen by one eye but not another. Like it chose which lens could witness it. That's when I started to understand why my landlord wanted me to distrust cheap cameras. Because some devices don't just record what exists. They record what wants to be seen. The next day, I confronted my neighbor across the hall. Not because I thought he was involved, but because he was always awake. Always careful. The kind of man who seemed like he'd been expecting something for years. His name was Morris. I'd met him briefly in the hallway weeks ago. He opened the door with the chain still latched, like he never fully trusted anyone. Before I could speak, he glanced at my door. "You put up a camera," he said. I blinked. "Yeah." His eyes lowered slightly, like he regretted asking. "You saw it." Not a question. I felt my throat tighten. "You know?" Morris swallowed. "I know what happens when people start looking," he said quietly. "What is it?" I asked. "Is someone breaking in? Is this some kind of—" Morris shook his head slowly. "I don't know what it is," he said, "but I know what it wants." "What?" His eyes flicked down the hallway, then back to me. "To be recorded," he said softly. "To be confirmed." I frowned. "That doesn't make sense." Morris's voice dropped. "It starts small," he said. "A sound, a shadow, something you can argue about." He swallowed, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his face. "Then you prove it exists," he continued. "You show someone, you replay it, you watch it again and again." He stared at me like he was pleading. "And every time you watch, it gets better at being real." My skin crawled. "So what do I do?" Morris didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Stop filming." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "That's your advice? Stop filming the thing that's coming into my apartment?" Morris's eyes hardened. "It's not coming in," he said. I stared at him. "Then how?" "It's leaving," he interrupted, voice tense. "That's what you said, right? Your camera shows it leaving." "Yes." Morris's jaw tightened. "Then it was already inside," he whispered. The words hit me like a punch. I took a step back, without meaning to. Morris watched me carefully. "There are places in this building you don't see," he said. "Spaces between units. Utility corridors." "Old vents, they never sealed properly." "That's not possible," I said, but my voice sounded thin. Morris's expression didn't change. "Do you hear tapping sometimes?" he asked. I hesitated. I did. I'd heard faint tapping through the walls late at night. Always assumed it was pipes. Morris nodded, like he could read my face. "Don't knock back," he said quietly. "And don't answer voices you can't place." "I haven't heard voices," I lied. Morris's eyes stayed on mine. "You will," he said. Then he closed the door gently in my face, chain still latched, like that was the only boundary he trusted. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my living room with every light on and the camera live feed open on my phone. Nothing happened for hours. At 1:30 a.m., I felt stupid, exhausted, like I'd invented a monster out of pixels. At 2:45 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected, 2:44 a.m., but it was 2:45. I stared at the timestamp on the alert, confused. The camera feed showed my living room. Empty. Then, from the hallway, movement. A figure stepped into view, hood up, dark clothes, same calm posture. The figure walked straight to my camera. Too straight, like it knew exactly where it was, even though it should have been new. It stopped. It looked into the lens. Then it raised a hand and pointed down the hallway. Toward me. My blood turned to ice. Because the camera couldn't see me from there. I was sitting on the far end of my couch, half hidden behind the armrest from the camera's angle. I knew what the camera could see because I'd tested it. And yet the figure pointed directly at my position. Then it did something that turned my fear into something worse. It tilted its head slightly, like it was curious, and it whispered. The audio didn't capture clear words, just a faint hiss of sound. But I could tell it was whispering because its shoulders and head moved the way people move when they speak quietly. I sat completely still, staring at the feed. Then my own phone, sitting on the couch beside me, buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. 2 words. Open up. My throat tightened. I didn't move. The figure on the camera feed turned away from the lens and walked calmly to the front door. It didn't touch the lock. It didn't touch the chain. It opened the door anyway. Then it stepped into the hallway outside my apartment and closed the door behind it. The camera clip ended. I stared at my front door across the room. It was closed, locked, silent. I checked the lock, deadbolt engaged, chain in place. I pressed my ear against it. Nothing. Then I realized my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I opened the camera app and rewound the clip. I watched it again. The figure pointing toward me. The whisper. The text message arriving at the exact same moment. It wasn't random. It wasn't just a recording. It was interactive. It knew when I was watching. It knew when I was awake. It knew where I was sitting. And for the first time, I admitted something I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud. It wasn't trying to steal. It was trying to communicate. And it wanted me to respond. The next day, I bought door alarms, new locks, and one of those cheap motion-activated lights you can stick in a hallway. I also bought something my brain hated buying, a small bag of flour. Because flour tells the truth in a way technology can't. I sprinkled a thin line of flour just inside my front door. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that footprints would show if someone crossed it. Then I sprinkled a faint dusting in my hallway near the bedroom door. Then I placed a strip of tape across the top corner of my bedroom door like a seal. A simple, stupid trick. If the tape broke, the door opened. I did all of it before sunset because I didn't want to be rushing while scared. That night, I didn't set any cameras. Not because I didn't want proof, because Morris's warning had started echoing in my head. Every time you watch, it gets better at being real. I didn't know if that was metaphor or something worse, but I did know one thing. I couldn't survive if I spent every night staring at my own footage. So I tried a different kind of watching. I went to bed with my phone face down and the lights off. I lay there listening to my building breathe. At 3 a.m., I woke up like someone pulled a string. I didn't hear a sound. I just knew. I stayed still. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps in my hallway. Not loud, not heavy. Barely there, like someone stepping carefully around creaky boards. My lungs locked. The footsteps stopped near my bedroom door. A whisper came so faint I thought it was inside my head at first. "Open up." I clamped my teeth together. Silence. Then something brushed my bedroom door. Not a knock. A touch. Like fingers tracing the wood lightly. Searching. Then the footsteps moved away. Back down the hall toward the living room. My heart hammered. I stayed still until the sun came up. When daylight finally turned my fear into anger, I got up and checked my traps. The tape on my bedroom door was intact. The flower in the hallway had a disturbance, like something had stepped near it, but not fully in it. Then I checked the flower by the front door. The line was unbroken. No footprints, no smears, no evidence anyone crossed into my apartment from the hallway. But my hallway flower was disturbed, which meant the movement came from inside the apartment, not outside. My stomach turned. Morris had been right. It wasn't coming in. It was leaving, which meant it had been inside the whole time. I stood there in the middle of my hallway, staring at the flower, feeling like my own apartment wasn't mine anymore. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Good try. Another message. You're learning. Another. So am I. My hands went numb. I deleted the messages. They came back anyway. New number, same words. It wasn't texting me like a person. It was marking my refusal like a teacher correcting a student. I called my landlord again. This time I didn't mention whispers. I didn't mention footage. I didn't mention anything that sounded unbelievable. I said one simple, practical sentence. I think there's a hidden access point into my unit. Silence. Then, what makes you think that? The layout, I lied, saying it casually. My bathroom wall sounds hollow, like there's space behind it. Another pause. We can send maintenance, she said quickly. When? I asked. Tomorrow, she answered. I wanted to demand today, but I also wanted to see what she did when confronted. So I said, okay. After I hung up, I went into my bathroom and knocked on the walls. Most of it sounded solid. Then, behind the mirror, a section sounded different. Not hollow exactly. More like there was a gap. My pulse quickened. I gripped the sides of the mirror. It didn't budge at first. Then I noticed a tiny bead of clear silicone along the top edge, fresh compared to the older yellowed caulk around the sink. Someone had removed this mirror before. I slid a razor blade under the silicone and slowly cut. The mirror loosened. I held my breath and lifted it carefully off the wall. Behind it wasn't drywall. It was a thin sheet of wood, painted the same color as the wall, with 2 small screws at the corners, a panel. My stomach turned. I unscrewed it with shaking hands. The wood came away, revealing darkness. A narrow space, maybe a foot wide, running behind the wall. I leaned closer, phone flashlight on. I saw wires. Old wiring. New wiring. A bundle of cables running upward. Then I saw something else. A shoe print in dust. Not on my side. On the other side of the gap. Like someone had been standing in there. My breath caught. I shined the flashlight deeper. The space led to another panel further down. A second exit. A corridor. My throat tightened. This wasn't just a gap for pipes. This was a passage. Someone had built, or kept, an access route between units. I stepped back, shaking. And that's when my security camera, still unplugged on the shelf, made a soft click. Not turning on, just clicking, like it had power for 1 second. Like something wanted me to remember it. I didn't sleep in my apartment that night. I packed a bag and went to a cheap motel. I turned my phone off. I left the camera off. I sat on the motel bed with the lights on, trying to convince myself I'd solved it. Secret corridor, squatter, someone breaking in from within the walls. It was terrifying, but it was human. Human meant it could be stopped. Human meant it had limitations. At 3:13 a.m., the motel air conditioner clicked on. My skin crawled. I stared at the door, and a whisper, so faint it could have been the wind, came from the hallway outside. Open up. I felt my blood turn to ice, because I hadn't told anyone where I went. And this wasn't my building anymore. The next day, I went back to my apartment with a friend from work. I didn't explain everything, I just said, I need someone with me. We waited for maintenance. A man in a gray uniform arrived at noon with a toolbox and a bored expression. He barely looked at me. He looked at my door lock like it was the only thing that mattered. Problem? He asked. I think there's an access panel behind my bathroom mirror, I said. His eyes flicked up for the first time. A flicker of something crossed his face. Annoyance, maybe, or recognition. That's not a thing, he said immediately. I removed the mirror, I replied. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't do that. My friend shifted beside me. Why not? Maintenance ignored him. Show me, he said. I led him to the bathroom. He saw the mirror leaning against the wall, the panel exposed. For a split second, his face changed, not surprise, frustration. Then he forced neutrality back on like a mask. That's old, he said quickly, left over from renovation. Why is it accessible? I asked. It's not meant to be, he snapped. Someone's been in there, I said, pointing at the dust. He leaned closer, then stood too quickly, like he didn't want to inspect it long. It's nothing, he said. My friend said, that doesn't look like nothing. Maintenance's eyes hardened. I'll seal it, he said. He pulled out a tube of silicone and began applying it along the edges of the panel with practiced speed. Wait, I said. Shouldn't we check where it goes? Maintenance didn't look at me. It goes nowhere, he said. That's a lie, my friend said. Maintenance finally turned, expression flat. You want to keep living here? He asked. The question landed like a threat disguised as conversation. My throat tightened. Maintenance nodded toward the hallway. Then let me do my job. He pressed the panel into place and sealed it like he'd done it 100 times. Then he turned to leave. As he passed my living room, his eyes flicked to my unplugged security camera. Just a glance. Then he said softly, almost too soft to hear, "Turn that thing off at night." I froze. "What?" I asked. Maintenance didn't turn around. He walked out. My friend stared at me. "Did he just—" I heard it. I whispered. My friend swallowed. "Okay," he said. "You're not staying here alone tonight." But that's the problem with terror. You don't get to choose when the experiment ends. That night, against every instinct, I plugged the camera back in. Not because I wanted to watch. Because I needed to know if the camera was part of it. If the camera was being used. If the camera was being fed a story. I set it up again. Same angle. Then I did something different. I set my laptop on the kitchen table with the webcam running and recording the entire night. 2 different devices. 2 different ecosystems. 2 different eyes. If something showed up on one but not the other, it meant something. If it showed on both, it meant something worse. I locked the door. Filmed myself, locking it. Checked it twice. Then I sat on the couch with the lights on until after midnight, forcing myself to stay awake because I wanted to catch it in real time. At 2:50 a.m., my eyes started to burn. At 2:58, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Watch. At 3:13, the security camera alert arrived. I didn't move. I opened the live feed. The living room was empty. Then the hallway darkened. The figure emerged. Same hood. Same calm. It walked to the camera and stood still, facing it. Then it lifted its hand and made a gesture I didn't understand at first. It placed one finger in front of where its mouth would be. A shh. Then it pointed at my front door. And the door opened. Not from the handle. Not from the lock. It opened like it had never been locked at all. The figure stepped into the hallway outside and closed it behind itself. Then it turned back toward the door, and for a moment, it looked like it was listening through the wood, like it was waiting for something from inside. I realized what it wanted. It wanted me to chase it. It wanted me to open the door while it stood right outside. It wanted me to break my own rule. I stayed frozen. The clip ended. I immediately checked my laptop recording. I rewound to 3:13. The webcam footage showed my living room. The door did not open. The hallway did not darken. Nothing happened. But the audio, faint, almost lost under the hum of my fridge, captured a whisper. Not from the door, not from the hallway, from somewhere inside my apartment. "Open up." My stomach turned. 2 cameras. 2 realities. 1 whisper. I sat there shaking, unable to decide which was worse, a figure the camera could see, or a voice the camera could only hear. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You see now." Another. "We can leave without opening." Another. "But you can't." I stared at the messages until the screen dimmed. Then, very softly from my hallway, inside my apartment, I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, moving toward my living room. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because if Morris was right, if attention was permission, then even flinching might be enough. The footsteps stopped just out of view. And then I heard something that finally broke me. A quiet click. Not the front door. Not the deadbolt. A click from behind the bathroom wall. The newly sealed panel, like something pushing against it from the other side. Testing the seal. Learning how long it would take to weaken. Then, in my own voice, perfect, calm, familiar, the whisper came from the hallway. "Open up." And I realized the most terrifying possibility. The figure in the footage wasn't leaving my apartment. It was leaving me, like shedding skin, like stepping out of a costume, like whatever was inside my walls could wear my door as a boundary, and my camera as proof, and my voice as the final key. I moved out in daylight 2 days later. I didn't argue about the lease. I didn't negotiate. I left. I threw away half my belongings. I didn't take the mirror. I didn't take the security camera. I left it unplugged on the bookshelf, like an offering I refused to carry. For a month, nothing happened. My new apartment was smaller, newer, louder, the kind of place where you hear neighbors, hear traffic, hear life. Noise felt like safety. I didn't install a camera. I didn't want to invite anything. Then, on a random Tuesday, I woke up from a deep sleep with my heart racing. I checked the time. 3:13 a.m. My phone buzzed. A notification from an app I hadn't installed yet. A security camera app. No camera connected. No device paired. Just a single alert on my screen. Motion detected. 3:13 a.m. I stared at it, frozen. Then another notification appeared beneath it, like a message from something that already knew me. Recorded clip available. I didn't tap it. I didn't want to see. But the screen played it anyway. Night vision. A living room I didn't recognize. A door I'd never owned. And a figure in a hood stepping out into a hallway, closing the door gently behind it. Then the figure turned back toward the camera, toward me, and lifted one finger to its mouth. Shh. The audio captured a whisper, soft, patient, certain. Open up? And that's when I understood what the title really meant. My security camera recorded someone leaving my apartment because it was never recording an intruder. It was recording the moment I stopped being alone. And the thing that left wasn't the stranger. It was the part of me that still believed a locked door meant anything at all.